Tēnā koutou, welcome everyone to another episode of Walking the Way, a gay man's experience in faith. My name's Craig, welcome, nau mai haere mai, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to this fifth episode of my faith journey. All during this week, I really struggled to kind of know how to present it. There's been several ways that I could have presented it, and I was really having trouble thinking how to present it without offending anyone, without wanting to be pushy about my views and where I've arrived at, but also just wanting to share my story and the thinking that I had around my story and the decisions that I made because of that thinking. So after a little bit of praying and a little bit of pondering, I came to the conclusion that I should really just present it the way that it actually happened. The other thing that I was thinking was that in this episode, I will just present how it happened and what my thinking was. And then in future episodes, because really this is the last episode of Craig's life story. After that, I want to return to the whole purpose of creating this YouTube channel in the first place. And that was to really help people to understand a gay man's journey within my church, in particular, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, although I know also in other churches as well. I've really felt for a long time that there's a lack of LGBT voices in the YouTuber sphere, gay people that want to live the gospel of Jesus Christ and how that works for them within the framework of Christian belief. So, what did happen? So this little gay boy, or should I say old gay boy, is quite happily living his life. As I talked about in my last episode, I left the Pentecostal church around 1993. I was just living life quite happily as a gay man with my drug and alcohol issues, obviously. But in a lot of senses, I was very happy. I got into rehab in 2000. So if you want to check into that, go back and look at the last episode, which was episode 4. After I had been in recovery for some time, I think around 2002, I became a fully fledged Buddhist. Not the kind of Buddhism with the robes and the monasteries. The practice of Buddhism which I practiced was Soka Gakkai International, and it's fundamentally from Japan. There's a lot of chanting involved, but also a real kind of just connection of living Buddhism within the context of everyday life. So it wasn't really about going to monasteries and all that sort of stuff. And I loved that. I think one of the reasons why I loved it is that they didn't have any opinion about homosexuality whatsoever. So it was a spiritual path that I could pursue without having to worry about being a gay person. I had leadership roles in the organisation that I was with. I was extremely involved and extremely focused. I was enjoying my career working as a dance pianist for a tertiary ballet institution, which I've worked for nearly 30 years now. On the work front, it was all cool. Life was pretty good. As far as my love life was concerned, let's just say I was very active, just not with one person. So, what happened to me? How do I go from being a ex-Christian Buddhist, living life very happily in recovery, so clean and sober, thinking that I would never return to Christianity? If you had told me 10 years ago that I would be a Christian again, I would have just laughed hysterically in your face. I would have never guessed in a million zillion years that I would ever be Christian again. More in particular, that I would end up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that's just a whole nother level of crazy, right? So how did it happen? I guess the first thing that happened was that I discovered YouTube. So this would probably be about 10 years ago. I discovered YouTube. So I was just, buzzing out on YouTube, watching all sorts of interesting things on YouTube. And at some stage, I came across ex-Jehovah's Witness content. So for any of you that are familiar with us ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, because of the shunning policies of the organisation, you lose everything. You lose everything that you never see the people. I've never seen the people I grew up with. I've never talked to them. If I lived in their town and I walked past them, they would look through me as if I didn't exist. 90% of Jehovah's Witnesses are wonderful people doing the best they can. I would like to emphasise that it's the doctrines that they are brought up with that cause them to treat people like this. It's not because they're horrible people, and I really need to emphasise that. But anyway, as you can imagine, us ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, I guess because also the other part is that we believed that the witnesses were the only true religion on the face of the planet. So for us to be shunned from that organisation, it's major, and it affects you for the rest of your life. I mean, I had a PTSD event around it a couple of months ago. Like, it's just ridiculous how much that kind of stuff can affect me even to this day. So I was watching YouTube, came across ex-Jehovah's Witness channels, and there's quite a big, extensive, strong ex-Jehovah's Witness community out there, particularly in cyberspace. So there's all kinds of ex-J-Dub groups that you can belong to. I was watching this ex-J-Dub stuff probably for a couple of years, and then somewhere along the line, I think this ex-J-Dub guy did an interview with this guy who was an ex-Mormon. I knew nothing about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I knew zero. I knew that they wore suits and ties. I knew that they did door knocking. And that was kind of the extent of it. So in that sense, I think the comparison between Jehovah's Witnesses and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, on the surface, they kind of look like similar religions. I just thought that was really interesting because there was some slight parallels, I guess, just in terms of both the Jehovah's Witnesses and the members of the Church of Jesus Christ. Both faiths, they weren't just Sunday Christian and, the rest of the week they did whatever. They were both very influenced and living their faith on a daily basis. That's what I found really interesting. I watched this interview, and so that led me on to watching his channel. His channel is called Mormon Stories. It still exists today. So I think I started watching it around 2014. He does interviews with people for hours. Generally, the outline of his interviews are kind of similar to what I've done on my channel in terms of, them growing up, their relationship with God, their relationship with church, why they left, things like that. So I got really interested in that. I guess it was just a change from, watching ex-J-Dub stuff to watch. I've always kind of been interested in sociological, religious stuff. I guess I'm just a bit that way. So this guy did a series of interviews with LGBT people. And that was obviously pricked up my little ears. And he did a whole series of interviews with these LGBT members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The stance that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints takes is that we don't know why God made people gay. They were taking the stance that it was okay to be gay, but you have to live the laws of God in terms of sexual behaviour. So that means for LGBT people, celibacy. So it does actually also mean that for all the straight members of that church as well, except the straight members obviously have the option to get married, whereas it leaves LGBT people without the hope of marriage and a long-term relationship. And this was the point of the interviews on Mormon Stories, was that the majority of LGBT people would, grow up in the faith and leave the church because obviously they wanted to go out and find love. So I get that completely. I think the interesting thing is that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints wasn't saying that you're evil because you're gay. They were just saying that God has standards in terms of sexual behaviour, and acting out meant that you couldn't be fully participatory within the church. Now, at this point of this talk, this corridor that I'm giving today, I just wanted to make one point from the scriptures, because I think that it's extremely important, particularly for my LGBT friends, that everything that we do needs to be done with love. So I just want to share a scripture briefly from 1 John chapter 4. 1 John chapter 4 says, God's love is revealed among us in this way. God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. In this love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the atoning sacrifice for our sins. Beloved, God loved us so much, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God. If we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is perfected in us. So for you outside of New Zealand watchers, Gloria Vale is a Christian community down the South Island, but there's huge problems with sexual abuse and with slavery, and it's all just really, it's sort of quite big news in New Zealand. And I was watching that documentary the other day, and I was thinking, Christianity gets such a bad rap because of stupid things happening like that. I was thinking, is really God just a bad guy? Or, humans use the Bible, they use Christianity in these ways that are really harmful to others. So I really wanted to just really say really strongly from that scripture in 1 John that if something's not done in love, it's not Christian. So the behaviour of people that do things in the name of God or do things in the name of their religion, but it's bad, that's because it's not God. It's people being naughty things and doing it in the name of God. So Jesus said that you would know his followers by the love that they have. So circling back to this discussion of the different views that different churches have on homosexuality. If I'm going to a church that says, gays are all really evil and they're all burning in hell because they're just evil, that's not love. So that's not God. So I just really I feel so strongly to just reiterate time and time again that I've chosen a certain path, and I've discovered in my studies that there's several ways that Christian churches are approaching the issue of homosexuality, and there's a range. So one is that homosexuality is completely, utterly wrong, and you're damned even if you just have a homosexual thought, and don't even bother because God hates you because you're gay. The second way is this way of saying, which is how I've ended up thinking, is that it's okay to be gay, it's completely cool to be gay, but gay sexual expression is wrong in God's eyes, only to the extent of the same thing for straight people as well. That God created sex to be between a man and a woman in the bonds of marriage. So whether it be gay or straight, it makes no difference. That sex outside of marriage between a man and a woman is wrong. A third way that Christian denominations are dealing with this is saying there's nothing wrong with being gay and people can be married. And so therefore if gay people can be married, then it's okay. There's obviously more different variations of those three things, but those are fundamentally the three ways that different Christian denominations approach this question of homosexuality. This is my experience of being gay. I know that this is not all gay people's experience. Please understand that I had become slightly disillusioned with the way that I lived as a gay man. It was basically all around porn and, sex with inappropriate people. And a lot of heterosexuals live like that too. I don't think that's peculiar to gay people. I think that, especially in this sex-saturated world that we live in, a lot of people live like that. So as I watched these stories, I'm very sorry. I feel like I'm being quite fragmented today. I hope that I'm making sense. When I edit this, I'll play it back and hopefully it will make more sense than I feel like I'm making. It also looks like it's going to be a long video, so sorry about that, you guys. As I watched, I picked up a lot about, not just about the LGBT experience of being in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but also a lot about the church itself, because these interviews, as I said, were lengthy and they delved into people's lives. My Christian watchers, my Pentecostal evangelical friends, we all know the drill. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is sometimes not even considered Christian, it's considered a cult, all this sort of stuff. There's a sizable anti-Mormon movement out there. As I watched the videos, I picked up on some of these things, some of the reasons why people didn't like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I learned about things like that at one stage black people weren't allowed to go to the LDS temples. I learned about polygamy. I learned about the founder of Joseph Smith and some of the issues around him. I knew about issues around the Book of Mormon, its translation, its historicity, and things like that. So as I watched these videos, through this kind of sea of anti-Mormon stuff, I started also clicking on that. There was answers to a lot of the questions. Up until this point, I'm still happily atheist and have no desire to join any church. I just wasn't into God. I was not going to join any church. Then something happened. There was one interview, and this interview was with this wonderful woman. This was a 6-hour interview, so I'm going to give you a real, very brief thing. Cut a long story short, she had married a guy in the 70s, turned out he was gay. 4 kids later, he left the church, went out, lived in the world. I think this was like in the 90s. Got the HIV virus, was really sick. His ex-wife took him in to her home and nursed him until he died. And that amazed me. Just amazed me. I could not believe that this believer in Christ would take her gay ex-husband with HIV in and nurse him until he died and love him until he died. I just couldn't believe it. Just couldn't believe that that would happen. And that was the first inkling that was like the demonstration of this woman's Christian love towards her ex. And her whole demeanour, you'd have to watch the interviews to kind of understand this, but I knew that woman was Christian. There was no doubt about it. I knew that woman was a follower of Jesus Christ. And it was that gave me this very first little inkling of maybe Christianity wasn't the load of rubbish that I'd come to believe that it was. Just a little inkling. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't signing up then and there. But it did give me an inkling, and it really affected me a lot. So in combination with watching the kind of like ex-mo stuff, I started realizing that there was other channels out there. So I started watching, there was this great channel called Fair. It was called Fair Mormon at the time. I think it's called Fair LDS now. So Fair as in F-A-I-R. This channel I found really interesting because it gives explanations and answers to questions. So you've kind of like got the anti side and then you've got the pro side. I started watching that, just checking out, what the other argument had to say. And this is the thing that I've realised as I've gotten older, that, for every discussion, there's another side. And so I started watching those, and it was through that process of watching those things that there's this thing that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints do. It's like you get the missionaries over, those boys that ride around on the bikes, and you get them over and you have some lessons with them. They'll give you you get the Book of Mormon, and you read the Book of Mormon, and you decide, you ask God if it's true or not. I had no intention of becoming a Christian again, but the more I learned about the LDS's policies about LGBT people, and it's important to point out that they have changed over the years. So I've been talking to my Pentecostal church friends, some of my evangelical friends, and apparently the whole spectrum has changed. I didn't know that at the time. I thought this was like unique to LDS, but apparently it's kind of similar in a lot of other streams or denominations. The doctrine of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is that you can be gay, you can be fully functioning within the church, and you can have callings or leadership roles, whatever you want to call them, serving roles. And it was just fine. You didn't have to hide who you were. You didn't have to pray the gay away. You could just be but live celibacy. So we call it the law of chastity. So I'm just going to call it the law of chastity. So when I talk about the law of chastity, I'm talking about that people live God's laws in terms of sexual behaviour, and because sex is considered to be only for between a man and a woman within the bonds of marriage, outside of that, it's celibacy, so that applies to straight people and gay people. As I said before, the only complication is that my female straight friend or my male straight friend lives the law of chastity, but they can get married, whereas I don't have that hope. But anyway, I became very interested in the church because I could be gay and not have to pretend anything else, and that was okay. And I saw that little chink just got a little bit wider. I was like, maybe this is a way to come back to God. Maybe this is a way that I can engage with God again after 25 years. So I snuck myself off to a Church of Jesus Christ Sacrament Meeting, which is like the first hour of their church, where they take the bread and the wine. Well, we do bread and water, but the bread and the water, they have a few talks. So you got to bear in mind that I'd been watching Mormon stuff for like 18 months. I'd not met a Mormon. This was all online. I kind of thought at one point, I better go and have a squiz at a LDS church meeting and see what they're really like, because I had no idea. And you know how you see things online and people say stuff online, but like, yeah, but what's it like in real life? What's it like in my own country? Because most of the stuff that I was watching was from the United States. So I trotted myself off to an LDS chapel and went to a service. It was a bit boring. Hey, you know, I'm an ex-Pentecostal. We have half an hour of praise and worship and a band and clapping our hands and raising our hands, you know. This was very reverent and not at all a kind of form of worship that I had become used to. I kind of thought it was a bit strange. I really liked that it was really multiracial. I thought it would all be, you know, kind of very Caucasian and, you know, but it was nothing like that. Church here in New Zealand is, you know, 80% probably of Māori and Pacifica. Met missionary companionship. They obviously knew that I was new because I wasn't wearing a white shirt and tie. After the first hour, we talked. I asked all my questions. I had lots of questions. And we can get into that another time. This is getting on to way over half an hour. I'm trying to keep these under half an hour. But they answered my questions. Still wasn't interested in joining the church though, at all. But they wanted my phone number and address. I said, nah, I just came to be nosy. And then a few weeks after that, because I knew by now this whole thing of, you know, you get the Book of Mormon and you read the Book of Mormon. And I kind of thought, what have I got to lose? I think I mentioned in my last video that all I've ever wanted was a relationship with God. And because of my homosexuality, that has kind of been made seemingly impossible. So I got myself online, ordered a Book of Mormon in the post. And I kind of thought, what's the harm in meeting with these missionaries? So I ordered me up the missionaries to come and visit at the same time. This Book of Mormon arrived in the post a week later, and I started reading it. And so I did this little experiment. So because with my Buddhist practice, I'd been in the habit of, for 15 years, of twice daily prayers. So you would do your chanting in the morning and then your chanting in the evening. So I just started comboing, you know, chanting in the morning and chanting in the evening with reading the Bible and the scriptures. So for my evangelical friends, you'll be glad to know that, yes, I did get a Book of Mormon, but I also started reading the Bible again as well, because I'll just cover all my bases. So I started reading the Bible, and I prayed for the first time in 25 years. And I just said, God, I don't know whether you exist. I don't think you do. But if you do, if there's a chance that you do, and that this is a path, this is a way back to God, that this is a path, and if you are real and it's a way back to you, please feel free to let me know. So I would just, you know, I'd do my Buddhist chanting, then I'd go read my scriptures, then I'd have a little pray, and within a week, I can't remember the timeline, probably within a week or two though, the Book of Mormon was not what I expected. It was far more Christian than I mean, the title on the page says it's another testament of Jesus Christ. So I don't know why I was so surprised. And I started feeling stuff. So I remember the first time I was like on my knees at the end of my bed, reading the scriptures, and I just felt this just felt this presence. Not a presence. I know now that it was the Holy Ghost. Look, I know that it wasn't me. And I know it wasn't something that I drummed up within myself. I just know that it was God. And I hadn't felt God for 25 years. So I was really surprised. And because this video is getting so long, I'm going to leave it there and do one last episode about why I joined the church, how I navigated that, how I navigate my homosexuality, particularly when joining the church. That was 7 years ago. I want to keep this short. It's 45 minutes at the moment. Hopefully when I edit it down, it'll be much less. I wanted to share two scriptures for Easter, because I love Easter. And it's Good Friday today. So, hey, we're going to do something. This is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 53. And it's a foretelling of Jesus Christ's ministry, and particularly his death on the cross for us, for all of us. And Isaiah 53, I'll start at verse 4. I mean, the whole chapter is great, but in verse 4 it says, "Surely he has borne our infirmities and carried our diseases. Yet we accounted him stricken, struck down by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the punishment that made us whole, and by his bruises we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have all turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth." So this Good Friday, as we remember, this is the day that we remember that Christ's suffering and dying on the cross was for my sins and my iniquities, and for everyone's. So it's a mixture of sad and happy day. Looking forward to Sunday and the resurrection of Jesus, that Christ came back to life so that we can all have life. So I'm really grateful for you two grinning and bearing this very long video, which I did not think would be so long. And I didn't even get through all my story. So I promise the next one will be way shorter. I promise. So thank you so much for listening, everyone, and I will see you soon. Maybe even like tomorrow or the next day. We'll see how that goes. Otherwise in a week. Okay. Kia ora. Thank you.